So everyone, oh my gosh, I am beyond delighted. I could cry and I am starting to cry because we're just getting hugely connected to the difference, not only individually that we make, but collectively we make. And I'm here with Nell Merlino, who I'm going to have her share her vision that she created many moons ago and why I thought now was just such the perfect guest to be the first woman on the new video series to inspire the women within the Tirtha sanctuary. Because now your legacy and what you've created, I'm sure, is why all these women are in their executives roles. So, can you share a little bit about you and what you've done? And then I'm going to ask you some questions about you to carry on. But just start a little bit with you.
Okay. Thank you. And thank you so much, Joe. Wow. It's so wonderful to see you again. Um, I I started Take Our Daughters to Work Day, which I did in 1993 with Gloria Steinem and the Ms. Foundation for Women. And it was something that came up because 1992 was the year of the woman in the United States, and that had all come about because Anita Hill had testified against the current Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. And I remember watching that, thinking, what are girls learning? What are we all learning? That this kind of behavior is okay, and that, the Senate didn't believe her, and all the things that transpired. And here we are 30 years later, or more than 30 years later, and we're still feeling the ramifications of some of those decisions. And I thought it was so important that girls were able to see what opportunities existed for them and also what challenges existed for them, particularly in at work. Because up until Take Our Daughters to Work Day, girls were cute. Girls were cute. You saw a bunch of girls. I still have to resist talking about how cute they are because they're cute. But they are so smart, so interested, so focused on so many subjects. And we don't, I think we think of them now more when we're, building businesses, creating products and all that kind of stuff. But at the time we didn't. And so it was this extraordinary um, opportunity for girls to see what their parents did, for parents to understand, in some cases for the first time, what their girls were interested in beyond, makeup and clothes or phones or whatever their interest was. I mean, and this is pre-smartphone. It was also pre-smartphone, which is, I think, significant in that 25 million people did it. So that there was extraordinary interest. There was awareness of parents who worked in corporate America, both mothers and fathers, that situation was not fair. It was not fair currently, and they were concerned about what would happen to their daughters as they, if and when they came into those jobs, and how do they change it? How do they make their daughters feel welcome? So it was this exercise. It was first an exercise in how do you make these 7th, 8th, and 9th graders feel welcome in your workplace. But then it got people thinking about that in many other situations, and because we weren't welcome. Most women who worked in corporations in the early 90s were always, I will say this for every opportunity I've had, always happy to be there, but challenged nonetheless, either in not being welcome or you being the only one. And therefore, how do you do this stuff alone? And I certainly see and know that much of that has changed. Has it changed enough? I would also say no. There are some companies, I think from Take Your Daughters to Work Day, I created an organization called Count Me In for Women's Economic Independence to help women grow micro businesses to $1 million companies. I founded the first online micro loan fund in the world and very quickly realized that in a developed economy, it was easy to get, build a business with with 10 credit cards. You could do that. I did that. And then we wanted actually to get lines of credit and, get loans and all the things and investment capital and all those things. So I went heavily into because the girls that take their daughters to work, they consistently wrote to me about, my mommy handles a lot of money. And you could never tell whether the mommy was an investment banker, a cashier at a restaurant, but there was something that they got about the power of the connection to the money. And so business sort of called out to me, and I had my own company when I did Take Our Daughters to Work Day, and built a company, and then did this Count Me In, which helped thousands of women across the country and around the world think about how they get their businesses bigger so that they could hire people and do all those kinds of things. So I've seen this and always had extraordinary support from women in corporations. I could not have done this without women at American Express, Walmart, Sam's Club, Capital One. I mean, there were many companies who stepped up because they understood how important it was. A way into leadership for a lot of women is to own their own business, because you are the leader. You are not, as in a corporation where you're, if you have aspirations to be the leader, it's a different trip than starting your own company. And so there was lots of synergy between women who had just risen to levels of, like senior VPs or corporate communications or corporate marketing, and their understanding of the value of women customers, but also the value of bringing up more women into leadership. It was unbelievably exciting to be in a room where there would be a couple of women who were corporate leaders in companies who'd never met each other, and then watching what was happening to these women who were starting these small businesses and understanding their power, because they were in high enough places with access to budgets, and they could actually help people transform and transcend situations that most women never had. So that was my very fun life for decades, actually, witnessing it and being sort of a catalyst for a lot of that activity. And we find ourselves at a very interesting place now, which I guess I now make art. I also make art, and the art really focuses on the beauty and power of women. And I'm working on a series now. I'm literally working on a portrait of Claudia Sheinbaum, the president of Mexico, because if there has ever been an example of extraordinary leadership on the part of a woman, it is not only the first female president of Mexico, but also someone who was thrust into an extremely challenging situation, and I think has handled herself and the situation better than most leaders, in terms of her presence, her confidence. And I think growing up in a macho culture has served her well in terms of her ability. I think we can learn a lot from her in terms of, Mexico still, like there aren't any women gardeners. Gardening is a man's job, and there are still very, very strong gender breakdowns to what goes on. And here she is, the first woman president. And she's a physicist. She's just all these incredible things. And she has taken on I think the biggest challenge ever, with such grace and such clarity and such power. So I'm making a portrait of her at the moment, and so inspired by her. And I'm doing, I have another sort of list of people that I'm doing that with. But yeah, so.
Well, look, there's you've just given, I don't know how many years in like a 15-minute recap.
50
years. And now one of the reasons I was so excited about chatting with you, and really chatting with you because I want to have the women who are in the Tirtha Sanctuary meet you. They are women in C-level executive roles. Yeah. They are, for the most part, women who, when they look around at the leadership table, they're the only women sat at the table. They are in tech and energy and medical sales, like these male-dominated industries. Yes. Where that old paradigm exists a bit more stronger. It's still there for sure. Now, what I would love to hear from you is your hunger and your quest, because I know you're always on a quest because you're such a visionary. And you've always been a visionary. And the women who are part of the sanctuary, they are all visionary too. They go through me to even get into the sanctuary. It's not like anyone can sign up. You've got to have a certain kind of oomph to you, which is you've got to have a vision that makes an impact for the future of either people that work around you, or how you want to shift something, how you want to create something. So what's had you for 50 years engaged in stepping behind and empowering female leadership? Why has this mattered to you for so long?
You know, I'm working on something now, and there's a new study out that says that in the Paleolithic age, 10,000 or 10,000 years ago, women made the cave paintings. Forever, we have thought, because the only word is caveman,
Right.
we thought men made those paintings. And there was something that hit me so hard when I read that. Because what I know deep inside is that we know how to do everything. And I mean, not without education and training and all that kind of stuff, but we know we can do it. We can run Mexico, we can go to the moon, we can, I'm looking at images of women who were queens 2500 BC. And what do you find in her tomb? But what did they? I think they've identified the first lipstick tube, and she was the queen. I mean, we have, shrunk ourselves, twisted ourselves, done everything to survive and be allowed to do whatever we do, when in fact, we can just allow ourselves. We can just, it is a deep belief that we are capable at a level that not only does the world need, but that I think so many of us want to express at even a greater depth. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm talking so loud, my thing just went off. Sorry.
No problems.
I'm gonna unplug it. This keeps happening to me. I have to put it in another room. Sorry.
No.
Yes, I see. I have a niece who's a freshman at. I have two nieces. One at GW who's doing international studies, and another at Johns Hopkins. And I see them and I hear them, and they're going over papers with me about who's going to control space, and speaking about it with great confidence, and comparing it to the Spanish Armada and the British Navy and all this stuff in the 1500s, and that this is what they will be dealing with, and speaking about it, that they will be dealing with it, not that it will be something that happens to them, but that they will be in the conversation. And I dare say I did not think that at 18.
Yeah.
I thought certain things. I mean, my years then were all about protest, and it was the civil rights movement, women's movement, anti-war movement. I mean, I was in all that. It was, you better stop doing all this stuff. And where we are now is, what are we going to replace these things with? What are we going to do instead? So it has always fascinated me that you have this unbelievably talented half of the population who we've really screwed up. I mean, screwed up in terms of not only not recognized, but not really appreciated the depth of what we have to offer. I mean, I learned it yesterday because I'm working on this new project, that a lot of the knowledge and early understanding of computer coding came from women who worked on looms. Every time I hear these things, and yet the practice of weaving in the art world is downgraded because it was women's work. I would like to dispel all that,
Well, I
because
want
we're
we're
it.
no. Here's the thing, because I can really I can sense something with you. So let's just see how we can open this up, okay?
Mhm.
Because there's been so much work of recent to get women reconnected to their own authentic power of who they are.
Mhm.
Let's just call
Yes.
it that, right?
Yes.
And just getting connected to who you are as a woman and your ability to create and your way that you do create and the way that you see life and who you are in community. Like there's a whole other way that we be that is not a man, and that is our power. And I'm not saying like the feminine and the masculine. There's just ways that when we're just different, we see life differently, we work way differently in that piece, and that's as far as I'm going to go on that. But as you said, somewhere along the line we lost ourselves.
Mhm.
And I, at the moment where I'm standing with this vision with these women, is this whole new rebirth, not in leadership as we've known it, but power in a way of who we fucking are.
Yes.
But for us to have that power, as you said, because like weaving is just a woman's oh, who do they care? But it's actually coding, which is the most phenomenal thing that got us to where we got to everywhere. But side point is
Yes.
is how as women, and this is really because you're so good at thinking like this, that how as women are we going to start to transform the environment so the environment starts to actually register and listen to who we are, so our power can be fully expressed. Because without the environment to support it, you might have power, but it will not last. It will go out like a flame on a match.
I've been looking at this very subject across time,
Yeah.
and I'm looking at it from an artist perspective, but it's relevant in that we are taught things, we're allowed in, then we're shut out, we're allowed in, we're shut out, where
Yeah.
we can't be in an artist studio because they're nude men and women, and God knows we shouldn't see that. Or you're not allowed out on the street. I mean, Paris became an art scene because women finally it was legal for women to be out on the street unaccompanied, and that was in the late 1800s. So how does that happen? How does that happen? I think it is a convergence. It is a convergence of women in leadership, in companies, in governments, in not-for-profits, where there is a growing understanding and value. I've seen it a couple of times. Where the stars are aligned, and there are enough women and some sympathetic men, but it's mainly women who recognize the value of each other and providing goods and services that are beneficial to their biggest consumer group, which is women. I've seen it. And I think it is something that we have got to get very clear about our value. It is. I mean, I'm 72. So I come from a generation where you were happy to be in the room. You contorted yourself to a certain extent. I couldn't do that for very long, hence why I became an entrepreneur, because I did not fit. I did not fit in that, and I couldn't make myself fit. And I applaud the women who figured out how to fit, because I wouldn't have been able to do what I did without them. So it all kinds of, it works. I we have to be very clear. We continue to see women who believe that, I'm just straight up, that the patriarchy is going to protect them and help them and all those things. There are millions of them who are still there, and I understand the fear, and I understand the if that's all you've ever seen, then that's, a way to go. But we have seen something else. We have seen something else, happily married, working for, doing all kinds of things. This is not a world with no men. It is a world where there are different kinds of relationships with men, where they value us as much as we value them. There are women who still operate with the notion that the man is the prize. We are the fucking prize. We're the prize. I mean, we reproduce the entire human race. We're the fucking prize. Excuse me. We're the prize. We're the prize. And it's taken me a long time to say that, to understand the importance of that, because everything else for centuries has been geared toward us believing that they are the prize. And we will subjugate ourselves, do all kinds of things to get the prize. And when you flip that around and realize that you're the prize,
then what will shift when you have a new relationship with yourself?
yes.
Then the environment needs to shift to serve that relationship.
Yes.
It's very interesting. I went to this construction expo, okay? So I flew to New York and I went to this construction expo because a lot of my clients are partners of construction firms, female partners of construction firms, right in there. So I'm like, all right, let me go on the floor and walk the floor. And I'm walking this floor now, and it's, I don't know, one woman for every 20 men. So, and I go there, but I'll tell you what surprised me. I'm very much aware of this conversation, which is about women needing to transform who they are for themselves. Literally, we've got to shift out of that old paradigm and get into us being the prize. I can't say any better. The power of who we are and the creation of who we are and everything, the magic of who we are. I mean, all of it. And at the same time, I was walking this floor, walking around, and I was talking to men because there was just more men to talk to. So I'm like, all right, they're just asking, what do you do? And I said, actually, I'm transforming what it means to be a woman in business and leadership. I'm working with women in C-level executive situations in male-dominated industry. And they said, and most of them were so fascinated because they said, Joe, I've got no idea how to develop her. And so I don't even think a lot of the men who know the value of women are a barrier to our power. I think this is all an inside job.
Yes, it absolutely is. I am convinced of it. That there are circumstances that are somewhere else, but related to like physical safety and things like that. But in terms of leadership, we know, unequivocally, we know what to do. If we're running something, and knowing what to do means knowing who to call when you don't know what to do. That is leadership. This is not this nonsense that we have to know everything. I think I have been successful in what I did because the first thought, too many women still think, oh, I can't take that on because I don't have the time. You can take it on when you figure out who you're going to hire to do it. You're not going to do any of it. If you're a leader, you're not doing anything but picking people, managing them, having a vision for the organization, and slotting in the people to make that happen. This notion still that we are not sitting around having conversations about who, as opposed to how am I going to do this? How am I going to do it? No, you're not going to do it. You're going to find somebody to do it. And that, it's not how, it's who. That is one of my, it is not how, it's who. Yeah. And I think when we understand that the women that can do that, and I don't think all women need to do this, as I don't think all men do this, but those that have chosen and want to be in positions of leadership who are ambitious, that's what you got to know and do, because That is what makes you valuable, because you can build things. You can bring your vision to life if you know how many bodies you need to do it and how much equipment and all those things. One of the most fascinating women leaders I ever met, the first time I met her, and she now has a $500 million, probably close to $1 billion lingerie business now. But she knew how many machines it took to produce a certain thing, and could walk into a factory and know, walking down one aisle, whether they could do what they said they were going to do. I remember thinking, whoa, you know what? You know your business. And I continue to believe that we underestimate what it is that we know and think someone knows better. And there are hundreds of people that know better about a whole bunch of things. You want to know all of them so you can bring them to bear on whatever it is that you're doing. You don't have to know it all either.
But I think you're hitting on such an important point, because I think women, I'm just going to speak for us right now, that we do see leadership as I am the one leading, but what has got collapsed is I am the one doing it all at the same time. Now, I don't know if that's a control issue, a trust issue, a lack of power, or just even knowing how to develop and train other people. So that could be a development.
I think it is a combination of things for some people, for some women. I've seen every version of this. Because I used to say things like, by the time I explain this to you, I can do it myself. I would like to smack myself for every time I said it, because I ended up doing all this stuff that if I'd explained it to somebody once, I would not be doing it again. So I had some of that, but I think my own background in campaigns, I worked on political campaigns, and they are so fast. And so there are critical moments where you're covering the entire, I worked on presidential campaigns. You're covering the entire country. Things are happening. And, there are all these, media cycles and all this stuff. You better find somebody, because you cannot be everywhere. And it was just like this.
Wow.
And I think that was a huge help to me in terms of always thinking about who, because you're sitting in Washington, they're all over the country. The candidates going all over the country. You got to find people. So I think it is, and as a result, I think I can do a lot of things because I'm not doing it. I'm putting the collection of people together, whether it's employees, consultants, whatever it is. And I think we need to think about ourselves in that way as sort of impresarios, where we're putting together, an opera or whatever it is. And it's all the different players that are going to listen to us because we're leading and we control the money and we have the vision and those kinds of things. And I would say, we need to spend more time looking at and understanding successful women leaders.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of them. There are more of them than we know. And throughout history, now, it's fascinating that they're there. And I don't know whether they know they're the prize. But I suspect they have some notion of it, because you got to know you're the prize in your personal life and in your life. Because if not now, when? When are you going to be the prize?
And then what is, and with the last question, because I have a sense I could sit and talk to you for hours. You have that spirit in you now. So I'm just going to ask you one question. I'm just going to get the time here. But and it's great being with you, by the way.
And you.
I'm just thinking of these. I'm just imagining some of the women that I know who are sat here right next to me, and I'd be thinking, what would they want to ask you?
Mm.
And I'm just thinking. So I have one lady in mind. Her name is Shannon, and she's been a CTO in nuclear energy for years.
Wow.
And she's phenomenal. She's really not only powerful in work. Her biggest commitment for the workspace, the workplace, is the real power of communication.
Mm.
And that the back end, the people who are in IT or in these jobs that no one knows what they do until something goes wrong and then they become the most important person ever kind of role.
Yes.
That they are actually connected to the vision of the company and feel included in the vision of the growth and the vision of the difference they make. Like, she really wants to shift business into being purpose driven with all the different groups, right? So she has a vision for the workplace, and she has a vision for what she wants to encompass, communication being one of them. And, you know, and each of these women have a vision of their own like that. Like, they really want to make a real difference. They're not just sitting here going, woe me, poor me. They all are like, no, I'm here. I'm the one, and I want to do something. What word of encouragement would you give to them, being a woman that's never given up?
Mm. We have everything we need. It's all in here. It's all in here. And I think we need to spend more time going in to put our hands on, to put our brains on, to put our hearts on what we have. Because we are not lacking. We are well equipped and abundant in terms of our energy, our ideas, our desires, our purpose. And I think there's a reluctance to show ourselves.
Yeah, I get that.
And I say show ourselves particularly because it is tricky for any leader, male or female. But, you know, all that thing about authenticity, all of that is true, but it's something that you negotiate, I think, as you see who you're leading and what the situation is. But it is to show people that you have the capacity to lead them and lead them into something that's going to be good for them.
Yeah.
You know, I'm always astounded at how, you know, until you're a boss, you have no idea. But I mean, everybody hates the boss, and, you know, for a whole host of reasons. And it's understanding that and transcending that too. Because most people don't want that job. Most people do not want to be the boss. And
Well,
we've stepped up and have taken on that role based on knowledge, personality, all kinds of things. And we just got to own it. Just do. I mean, I physically literally do things like put my hands up over my head just to get the energy draining the right way. I mean, all those things. And to see yourself in charge as a leader. I mean, that's one of the reasons I make the images I make now. You know, I think about characters like Joan of Arc and all those folks. Just, you know, we don't have enough of that in front of us to understand, and it's clearly different now, but sort of. But we have the strength. We have what we need. We have what we need. The most important thing is that we need to be with each other, because there is not enough in each individual workplace to reinforce some of the things that which is why I applaud what you're doing, because for us to be together is to, you know, stiffen all of our spines to be so funny, stiffen all of our spines to be ourselves. But yes.
Yes.
It is encouraging each other to find a way to bring what is best in us to others and to get the best out of the others. And I know that if you do that, others will.
It's so amazing what we're ending on, because it's really the core reason of why I created Tirtha. Because I'm very clear, like you are, that when women really connect to the true essence of who they are, all there is love.
Yep.
And when we can take that power and that love back into the workplace as leaders in this whole new way to be as a woman in leadership, then we've got a shot of creating a new environment to work for everyone to work in. And that's the new leadership I'm pointing to. So thank you so much for sharing everything you said. Just so you know, Tirtha means where heaven meets earth. And this is our role as the next legacy of female leaders. You got us into the workplace. Our job now is to actually now transform the workplace. And I just love you and just thank you for everything you've done to get us here.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Bye.